This is a place where I spent my childhood, and this is a place that I went to read my middle school and high school. In the first year of this change, I was both feeling the isolation from city kids and longing for my old rural life. Such a combustion triggered my curiosity in exploring effects of urbanization on human life. To answer this question, I went back to the innovations that shapes today's city. My story began with elevator, the invention that transformed cities from horizontal expansion to vertical expansion. The early elevators were mostly a privilege of the rich, with cushioned chairs and chandeliers. Those intricate devices were controlled by an elevator starter, manually matching guests with their destination floor, a professional bridge between users and technology, like a private driver for every car bought that time. It was until 20th century that Frank Sprang, an American inventor, that made the modern self-service automated elevators. Disappearance of elevator starters suggests redundancy of private drivers, a mark of the privileged and patented automobiles before Henry Ford's Model T. Ford realized that most of the cost was spent on hiring a driver, and an all-affordable car should be both maneuverable enough for owners and unsophisticated for producers. To achieve so, Ford discarded traditional handicraft method and applied the perfected assembly line. Instead of manufacturing a car as a whole, parts made by separated specialists are assembled together later. With this technique, Ford's factory can produce cars 8 times faster than any other car factories in the world, whose economies of scale promise a decent profit. In response to division of labor, the minimum requirement for workers lowered, creating more jobs and higher salaries. Nowadays, most industries employ assembly lines, whose products include food, medicine, electronics, all manufactured millions a batch to support the strong demand from cities worldwide. Some argues that mass production of lifeless products enable every city dweller to enjoy the pleasure alongside. The production of living creatures, however, raise ethical concerns. In order to support the food system in large cities, numerous cattle are delivered onto assembly lines every day. From the 1930s and beyond, emergence of fast food industry and its revolutionary factorized kitchen demanded large quantities of raw meat, which leads to an amazing congregation of meat production. For now, only a handful of companies control our food system, which is sampling meats and distributes them to assorted brands in supermarkets bought by us. While the assembly line receives praises in the automobile industry, it has obscure but fatal side effects in meat production. Manufacturers are pushing the productivity to the limit, regardless of livestock's well-being. The cultured chicken can grow twice as big as before within half of a normal growth cycle. A pile of living meat so fragile that they can't even walk on their own on the day they were sent to the slaughterhouse. Yet technologies applied in the process are even more disturbing. A chicken house owner was even resistant to any existing antibiotics thanks to direct contact with overdosed chickens. The situations for another primary meat were also unfavorable. Beef in a hamburger today has pieces from thousands of cattle, so if one of them was infected, all the ground beef is infected. It seems that as we introduce technology to the world, we are staining these creatures flourishing after million years of evolution with synthetic additive for commercial profit. Such disturbance of nature would be amplified through the food chain and finally converges to our own physical distress. Yet if we move one step further, stride over the ethical barrier between human and the rest of the world, what would be our final answer through this thought experiment? In fact, the lives of workers have already been industrialized. Since the 1940s, The meat packing companies began to borrow labor practice from fast food industry, cutting down wages, no unions, speeding up productions. They routinized their working cycle and turned meat production into one of the most dangerous jobs in the US. Workers, realizing that their standardized skills are not irreplaceable in mass production, usually surrendered obediently. With the globalization of trade, illegal Mexican immigrants joined the workforce. But as the government's anti-immigrant movement began, it was not the companies but the workers that were cracked down. It reminds me when fatal bacteria were found in the beef. The government cracked down on the beefs but not the companies. They recall the batch of defects, destroy them, and wait for it to happen again. The same applies to the workers. There are even so-called agreements between companies and the authorities that the immigration department can get rid of 15 people per day if not affecting the production line. They arrest the same amount of people at the same time every day at the same place offered by the large companies. Those overweight officers were seen prosecuting their food producers unaware. They represent a built-in self-purification system, but were actually another cohort of workers subjecting to the control of the assembly line. Some are produced upstream, others consumed and adjusted downstream. They were merely same gears and screws, but unacquainted. When we talk about people being pulled into the assembly line, we mean that people manufacture revised lifestyle along with their inventions and applications. In the past, we believed that only humans could shape society. We are the ones to endow inventions with culture, no matter it was the culture of industry, agriculture, countryman, or citizen. However, as the industry revolution wages on, perhaps it's time to recognize our endowment from it. The city is shaping us. This huge interlaced congestion of our ideology and pursuit wipes out all individualities like a black hole. The low requirements of workers clothe the workforce indistinct. The mass-produced commodities clothe our utilities indistinct. And the habits of city kids clothe the future of host city indistinct. An indistinct, congested assemblage, like a pile of living meat, is slowly squeezing its way towards the slaughterhouse. Such is the foundation of modernization, a city of unity, yet a prelude of its solitude.